By the international time.
We'll call our monthly meeting to order. Commissioners meeting, all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation. Pledge of
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Gracious and loving God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the blessings that we enjoy. Lord, we thank you for a county where citizens care about each other and they care about their community. Lord, we pray for those that are dealing with the unrest, and we pray, Lord, that we will not be victim to that. And we pray, Lord, that we will continue to keep our citizens in mind and the decisions we make, the directions we take. Lord, we pray for hope for all, and pray, Lord, for the health of our community. Guide us in this meeting, in Christ's sake. Amen.
First of all, looked over the agenda. Need a motion to approve.
Move.
Get a motion, have a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, raise your right hand. I vote. Public comment time. Anyone that wishes to come forth and speak? Right ahead. Get your name and your address, please.
Director, I live in Glade Valley. I'm also a board member and the treasurer for the Lake Creek Volunteer Fire Department. I wanted to talk this evening to clear up some false accusations about the fire department, myself and Hugh Shepard. Keegan Alford made some accusations 2 weeks ago against the fire department, myself and Hugh, our assistant treasurer. He flashed a copy of a canceled check stating that, according to his records, that a check for $9903.75 was unaccounted for. He went on to say almost $10,000 was accounted for, and that Hugh and I had signed the check. I watched the recording, but cannot make out anything that pertains to the check because it's blurry. We moved the checking account from First Citizens Bank, First Community Bank in 2016. We have not written a check for the said amount that Mr. Alford is claiming. There are no monies unaccounted for. If there's a copy of a canceled check, then the funds are accounted for. Okay, he turned the check around, or a copy, or whatever, and he flashed it around to you guys, and you could tell that it's a canceled check. It's stamped on the back. And I would love to get a copy of that. He stated that he walked down the hall to the finance office and got said copy of check. Okay, I talked to someone in the finance office. They said they did not have a copy of the check, and they did not provide him a copy of the check. Also, my notes here. If there is like I said, if there is a copy of a check, it's accounted for. Also, I did not realize that Mr. Alford was our CPA and had access to our books, since he stated that his record shows funds accounted for. So, Keegan, I would like to know how you came up with this conclusion. It is one thing to accuse the fire department of wrongdoing, but when you personally name names, that is a serious issue, especially when you're being falsely accused, and I do not appreciate that at all. Mr. Alford said that he walked down the hall. Again, I told you he walked down the hall and got a copy of the check. Mr. Alford stated, he said that we had spent X amount of dollars, a privacy fence between their house and our training facility. However, Mr. Alford failed to mention that we had a meeting last year, and they were present along with 2 deputies and several other people and all board members. We were trying to find a resolution to said issues at the training facility, which I'm sure you all are aware of. You've only heard it 1,000,001 times. When we mentioned building a privacy fence, Fang agreed to that. And also, we told him the music would be, turned off at 11 p.m. and at each event, and he agreed to that as well. So we thought everything was going to be fine since it was agreed upon. However, as you well know, that is not the case, and it has been an ongoing issue ever since. Also, it was said that we are running a nightclub at the training facility. This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, and I'm not going to waste any more words on that subject except to say that it is not true at all. In my opinion, Keegan, You and Alfred, you and Fang need to go get a dictionary and look up the meaning to the word truth and get reacquainted with it. There is no misuse of funds or missing funds at Glade Creek Volunteer Fire Department, and any of you all can look at our books at any time if you still have any doubts. I have never taken a dime that was not mine, and I will not. I have heard many times in these statements they have given that they need to check into our spending. We have canceled check or receipt for every dime that is spent out of the account. Again, I do not appreciate being accused of such, and that puts my character in question, and that I will not tolerate. If you have concrete proof of such wrongdoing, please present it. Also, I would like a copy of the check that Mr. Fang was flashing around 2 weeks ago, so I can see for myself that it had to be altered because the check does not exist for that amount you stated. In my opinion, folks have too much time on their hands to sit around and make up lies about the fire department and its members. If everyone keeps their mind on their own business, you wouldn't have time to meddle in someone else's. This petty behavior needs to stop immediately so we can all get back to running our fire department and take care of our folks in our community. It's time to grow up and bury the hatchet. In my opinion, they have a personal vendetta against the fire department and our chief, David. There is enough going on in the world today without adding to it. Thank you for your time, for letting me speak this evening. I hope this clears up any doubts or questions that anyone may have. If not, I'll be glad to answer any questions anytime. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can we ask a question? You just said that fence
Yes,
that they are accusing you of paying for,
yes,
that was agreed to in a mediation with two deputies present.
yes, sir. I can tell you the deputy's name if you'd like to know.
I believe we can keep that information private, so you have no record of any check for that amount.
No, sir.
He has no access to your accounts.
No, sir. He flat out lied and said he walked down to the finance office and got said copy of check, which is also false, which I've proven that.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Thank you, Tina.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any comment? Sir.
Echo pretty much what Mrs. Rector said, but my name was kind of dragged through the mud a little bit last week, and I see no one is here to, it's a kind of a hit and run deal. They hit last week, but they're running this week, and that's not good. But anyway, they have slandered us, they've defamed us. I'm talking about me and Mrs. Rector. I'm talking about Glade Creek Fire Department. We have had a constant hassle with these folks for over a year. I mean, we can't do nothing right, absolutely nothing right with this training center. A car pull up in the parking lot over there. He has a camera up over this 8-foot fence that he can see everything's going on in this parking lot. Last week, Chief Higgins and another fireman were over spraying Roundup around the fence. 5 shotgun shots went right over their head from the Alfred residence. Where I come from, there's people still in this world. When you start seeing lead falling over your head, you're liable to start shooting where the shot's coming from. Now, I don't know whether they've got enough realization to realize that, but that's not good. That is absolutely not good. But anyway, I'm like Mrs. Rector. I would like to see a copy of this check that we supposedly signed, and for the amount it's supposed to be. His terminology was that he went down the hall and got this so-called copy of the check. The only place I would know he'd go down the hall would be in the bathroom where a lot of other stuff, that, if you know what I'm saying. That's about what the terminology. We would like to see this come to an end. It's not good. We spent a lot of money trying to keep everything going, and these folks is really hurting us. They are hindering us in every way possible, and I don't appreciate it. And if Keegan Alford was here today, in my opinion, that he is a liar, and I'd tell him right to his teeth. That's the only thing I got to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Dale Cavney. I live at 124 Allison Lane. And I'd like to just take this opportunity to thank y'all for the work you've done on the current budget, getting that back in line, and then next year's budget. I know that was a difficult task, and I appreciate the work that y'all did on that. I'd also like to speak to the fire tax. I am in support of the fire tax. I'm in support of funding our firefighters to the extent that they need so they can fight fires, so they can train, and so they can respond to emergency incidents. I am a bit concerned about the contract that's on the agenda, that there's not a contract yet for that fire tax that specifies what the expectations for the fire departments are. And it seems just a little bit that we're getting things just a little bit out of order passing a tax before we really clarify the expectations for our firefighters and for the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, we'll close the public comment time. Lisa Bottomley, chamber update, please.
Good evening. Hope all is well. My name is Lisa Bottomley, of course, Executive Director for the Chamber of Commerce. Just wanted to give you a quick update of what we're doing at the Chamber right now. The front of Visitor Center is still closed, unfortunately. We've had some water damage to the front of the building. It seems the old rock with the old mortar didn't hold up during all the hard rains we had recently. The town is working with us to make those repairs and be able to replace some ceiling tiles that were damaged. It affected the carpet, so we're working on all of that and getting that back open. Of course, as you know, the streetscape is going to start on our end of the street here before this Wednesday, actually. So that'll be another 6-8 weeks that we may be closed, or at least partially closed from the front entrance. So we may have people entering into the back door. We still are doing it just by appointment only. Wanted to let you know that we're getting more calls at the Chamber of Commerce regarding visitors, what's open here in Alleghany, what guidelines we have in place. So we have a lot of people interested in coming to visit. I think a lot of people are ready to get out of the big city, come up to the quiet country. I think we can probably all relate to that. We are also recruiting new members, recruiting new investors, getting more people interested in what the Chamber can do. We're looking at our benefits to see how we can, make it worthwhile for someone to invest in what we're doing and invest in this county. As far as Authentically Alleghany, I will be returning in 2 weeks to present to you the new Authentically Alleghany website. I think you'll be very pleased with that. We kind of unveiled it a little bit today, and we're extremely pleased on how it looks on your mobile device. It is responsive so that everyone can, pick up your smartphone and scroll through and find whatever you need on that website. There was a lot of information, very valuable information on that website, but we are trying to dwindle that down just a little bit so that it's more user-friendly, things are easier to find. We've are changing some of the language on Authentically Alleghany. We're using it has to evolve with everything else. Websites have to evolve with the times and evolve in the direction our county is going. And what we want to do with that website is to be able to not only a place for somewhere people can find the facts they need to find for Alleghany County, all the information, events, but we also want it to tell our story as well, so that it's a story compelling enough to get people to visit, stay a while, and perhaps want to move here. And that's our first priority, is get people here in Alleghany County. And then later on, we'll talk, we'll be able to address getting more businesses in here and watch our community grow. So I think you'll be very excited to see the finished result. So again, I'll be back in a couple of weeks. Anyone have any questions about the Chamber or Authentically Alleghany right now? All right, thank you all so much.
Thank you. Public Safety Employees Recognition.
Chairman, I'll be glad to speak on that if I could. Everyone is aware of the situation with COVID-19. We have been, we are, and we continue to face that each and every day. And so often, there are times that we get caught up into things that sometimes we overlook some items. Well, I wanted to put something on the agenda just to recognize our public safety employees. And so I have a listing that I could certainly read through. It would probably take us 40 minutes for me to get through it. But what I would like to say is that we have 26 full-time law enforcement, 11 part-time law enforcement. We have 8 full-time jail staffing with 6 part-time jail staff. We have 5 full-time dispatchers, and we have 8 part-time dispatchers. We have 12 paramedics that are full-time, 1 administrator, and 27 part-time on EMS. We have 1 full-time emergency management coordinator. We have a number of volunteer firefighters that I believe some are in attendance tonight, and the staff that goes with those. We have the rescue squads outside, and we have the health department. And I just think that this board and all those should take a moment and appreciate those. And if there's an opportunity to commend them, I would encourage that at this time.
Thank you, sir. Good point. We certainly need to thank all those agencies involved and thank them for their stepping up and doing what they do every day with no questions asked. They get right out there. Okay, moving on down, general business, quarter-cent sales tax referendum. That will be going back on the ballot this fall. Try to get that passed one more time. Need a motion to adopt the resolution.
Make a motion we adopt.
Second to the motion, sir.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. 5-0, thank you. Fire and Rescue Association.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, the chairman and I met last Thursday, and we discussed a few things that we would like to see in the contract with the various fire and rescue departments. One of the things that we both acknowledged is often there are areas that I am not versed in, I'm not familiar with, and we felt between the two of us and wanted to bring it to the commissioners, a fire rescue association. A fire rescue association hopefully made up of retired fire chiefs or fire department members that could review and advise the commissioners on the need for equipment whenever it's asked for and change of rules and regulations. That is the purpose of the Fire and Rescue Association.
Anything else?
I believe that's it.
Don't need a motion. We need to put on this.
It's something that, as I understand it, that you want to identify and then possibly bring up at your next meeting for further discussion. Would that be correct?
I believe that's correct, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we'll table that for till the next meeting and bring that back up. Moving on down to item 3, remote participation.
Chairman, I can make a few comments. It's been a question in the past to look into the ability to provide remote participation for commissioners. meetings due to certain circumstances that may arise. So on pages 2 through 11, there is a reading that identifies how this type of provision could occur from the school of government. And for tonight, I would encourage everyone to read that. I know that Ms. Shoemate has also looked at it. I don't know if she has any additional comments.
Especially unless they.
What's the feeling of the board and what?
Mr. Chairman, I think this is, we're in a gray area right now because I'm looking at the rules of procedures adopted December of 2019. Refer to Section 2, open meetings, rule number 2, C as in Charlie. The purposes of the provisions of these rules concerning open meetings, an official meeting of the board is defined as any gathering together at any time or place, or the simultaneous communication by conference, telephone, or other electronic means of a majority of the board members for the purpose of conducting hearings, participating in deliberations, or voting upon or otherwise transacting public business within the jurisdiction, real or apparent, of the board. So we've got it in our rules. We may be, and according to what I've read, we don't have case law one way or the other.
That's correct.
So we could, right now, we're operating saying that we can do it. We're in a gray area, subject to suit, subject to a court case.
So I think that you've only actually used that provision maybe 1 or 2 times. It was never for a vote, but just for a remote participation.
A table list, read over it like Michael says, and
Well,
revisit or what?
I think we need, what I've read in the document that's been provided, need to table it, but I don't believe we could go to the School of Government. We could go just to the High Country Council of Government, and they're in the gray area also. This is one that's going to be decided by the courts at some time in the future, I believe. Now, this is an excellent opportunity to get clarification with COVID-19. No one anticipated what we're going through right now. The legislature is silent on it. I believe that they need to make a definitive judgment. It's the issue, see what happens. We can table. If we table it, it's just going to sit out there in the ether. We can send it to a committee if you want to kill it. The best way of killing something is send it to a committee. We can always cuss and discuss until the cows come home.
Anybody else have any thoughts?
I think looking at what the bulletin that we're given from UNC, number 133, is August of 2013. A lot has changed since then. I think we as a board need time to read through this and discuss it, and especially with Donna Shoemate. And I don't know if there's any use to pass something if the legislature is going to turn around and overrule what we do. Right now, everything is working pretty well. I've been involved in a lot of Zoom meetings. I've got questions about those being secure sometimes when you go into closed session. I would like time for us as a board and for legal to look through this a little more thorough. I don't think we're in a big hurry right now.
A motion, we table it for one meeting.
The motion, I'll second that, and for one meeting,
Mid-month meeting, sir?
month meeting.
I will second that.
The motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. I vote. 4 is authorized volunteer fire department rescue contract revisions. You want to explain that, or?
During the meeting that the chairman and I had, we were brainstorming about the revisions that we were contemplating on the contract. We wanted to bring it to the commissioners in that we have 4 recommendations that we have given to Ms. Shoemate. And they are basically, let me see, the first one is, will remain, all the other provisions will remain the same. We will request financial statement of income and expenditures yearly. We will, I've just hit a blank, Mr. Chairman. What was the other? Wanted language that the funds provided by the fire tax could only be used for the operation of the fire department's equipment, operations, things of this nature.
Line item.
Line item, the line item of income and expenditures.
Is that the general ledger you're talking about?
General ledger. Yes.
General ledger.
General ledger,
Those words be in the contract?
yes.
Okay. As an example, the one that David Osborne, that's an example that he
Right.
does, I think, 4 out of the 5 fire departments.
Correct. These have been submitted to Ms. Shoemate, and it was our hope that hopefully that we could receive her proposed contract with volunteer and rescue squads, volunteer fire department and a rescue squad prior to 1 July, whenever this initiates. Now, this would be a contract for our review and input. We would request a budget by, I believe, 1 April for, submission so that we could have ample time to go over it. That's the 3 of the 4 things that I can remember.
Actually, Mr. Carter, you correct me if I'm wrong, we actually have a year, July 1, to do that contract.
Correct.
That's correct.
Doesn't mean we're going to take a year, but legally we have a year
That's correct.
to do that contract with each department. Just throwing that out there for the record.
So
Okay?
sometime in the future, whenever Her Honor has had a chance to rewrite the contract, it will be coming before the commissioners so that we can discuss, make any additions, deletions, and then enact it.
Okay. Any further discussion on that? Volunteer Fire Department Rescue
I don't
Contract?
believe we need a vote on this. It's just advisory information, sir.
Just to be clear, the contract we're talking about is in regards to the fire tax
It's
implementing.
their contract with what is expected of each fire department in their contract to do. And the expenditures of the monies. Moving on down to the budget, fiscal year 2021. We'll wait just a second until Bobby gets back here. We'll go into discussion.
While we're waiting, could you scroll down to page 16?
16.
18, I'm sorry. Top of that page. There may be a section 17. There it refers to, or is talking about restriction of budget officer. Reference is section 15 with the changes. Addition of the fire tax maybe need to be reshifted. Actually move it to 16. 16, is that correct? Okay.
Okay, let's move on. Our 2021 budget ordinance. Just everybody has looked all this good stuff over.
Mr. Chairman, this is a subject that has been looked at. I'd like to compliment the Budget Committee, especially the county manager, for going through in their diligence. This is a reduction of over $1 million from a previous year's budget. I know that there's been a lot of cussing and discussing, as I like to say, about this. He has worked a miracle. He has adjusted. I had some objections to this budget, especially with the COVID-19 challenges that Appalachian Health has at this present time. Magic manipulator has been able to find the funds to fully fund Appalachian Health. Commend the Budget Committee and the county manager, and I make a motion that we approve the county budget as presented, sir.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
Chairman, I would like to also commend everyone and two board members that worked on this. A lot of time in it, and I don't even know how much time, but I'm grateful. I know that the hours must have been a lot. I'm good with all of it except for I still do not feel like the fire tax that we are ready at this point to implement it as proposed. Contract and the plan for the fire departments to improve their fire ratings is, I don't think that we've talked to the fire department all with a contract. I mean, of course, we haven't seen a contract either, so I just feel like that I'm challenged with that, and that's the only part of it that I'm challenged with is the section 15, and I'm not advocating that we don't fund the fire department. I would rather do it with a property tax, about a 3.5-cent property tax across the board, rather than these fluctuating fire tax districts rates. Fund them at the same amount. That's 2 or 3 issues that I have with the fire tax part of it. Great budget, great work. We've really needed to work on in a way that it's needed to be done. So thank y'all.
Any further discussion? If not, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? 4-1. 4 yeas and 1 nay. Budget is adopted. Move on down to the 2021 fee schedule. A little change in fees. Anyone have any questions about the fee structure?
These are all level from last year.
Change in fee structure.
3% on transfer.
Yes, sir.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion, got a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Well, wait a minute,
Just one question. On the
Irvin.
the emergency, the ambulance charge. Last year, I think, or this past budget, this budget that we're in this year, there was something brought up about the distance that a county ambulance could travel. We missed, that patient missed that distance by 15 or 20 or whatever miles. Is that policy still in place?
All policies is the same.
Okay, so even if the patient wanted to pay that difference, they still are denied being able to go to the hospital of their choice?
They were not denied to go to the hospital. They had to provide their own ambulance service.
For providing the ambulance service, and there's a $10 per mile loaded patient fee in there. I don't know why that fee still couldn't be applied if somebody wants to go 15 or 20 miles outside of whoever drew up that district. You know, we have a lot of people that have second homes in this county, or to go to their own doctor or their own hospital where they have a history. That's all I'm asking is there a way to accommodate those people by adding this additional, or by using this additional fee? If emergency medical, if that's the fee scale that they want, and they don't want to consider these other patients, then that's their choice.
Right.
Other than that, I have no.
All right, no
No
further,
problem.
no further discussion. All in favor, raise your right hand. I vote, motion carries. Next on the schedule is the BDC Wilkes Community College Library paving follow-up.
Chairman, I can speak
Yes,
to
sir.
that. You remember at one of your previous meetings, we had a conversation about the paving at the BDC and some of the points of concern that originated from such. Since then, I think initially, Commissioner John Irwin, Commissioner Bill Osborne, myself, and Drew, we met at the BDC, some others, and we talked about the condition of the paving. After that meeting, I was able to link up with the individual that actually done it from High Country Paving. And on that outing, Commissioner John Irwin, Drew, and myself met. We discussed the condition of the asphalt and talked about ways to help remedy what was there. And I have basically a writing from that individual, because we talked about timeframes and we talked about warranties and we talked about expectations. And I'll just read directly from his piece of paper with his place of business. Some areas in the parking lot was contaminated with rainwater before we could get it compacted properly. Issues was discussed, and this is at the time. This wasn't at our meeting. This is at the time, with Alleghany County Maintenance before we moved the equipment off. We came back and tried to heat and blend the material. Areas are not to quality and will be fixed under warranty as discussed. And those areas that we initially described and talked about, with anywhere from the bad run of asphalt to some of the sloping and puddling issues, is what we followed up in that conversation with. We've also learned that very soon there will be some tearing up I guess is how I would phrase it, in front of the BDC as well, to allow for a new facility to be constructed. So I personally haven't seen any of those plans or know the extent of that, but I will tell you that from my understanding, some of that asphalt that is existing will also be torn up during that process. And Commissioner John Irwin, you were present there. If I missed anything, please.
I believe you've covered everything.
The individual is aware, the individual has identified his willingness to repair it under the warranty, and at this point, I think that's what we expect and require.
That's where we need to be. Right. Thank you. Thank you. All right, next is the agenda layout. A little change up in the agenda. Items to be voted on, items for information to be voted on. Y'all good with that?
My concern was that while we were doing items that were under discussion, and then we went to an item that was to be voted on, a different category. I'd like us to go back to that, items that are just for discussion to be at one meeting, then items that come up in that discussion are to be voted on at the next meeting, which gives the commissioners and anybody in the public time to make comments and the commissioners to do research on the item that's coming up for a vote. I think it makes for a cleaner agenda. Then there's no ifs, ands, or but about what we're voting on at what time we're voting on. I just think it's a neater agenda.
What else?
Don't we have the ability to table any item on the agenda?
Yes.
We do.
I don't see a need in making that change.
Hear what they said.
The ability to table is a majority vote or an individual vote.
A majority vote.
So that gives a commissioner that has questions, no time to do any research.
If it gets
If the
majority.
others want to go ahead and push something through.
We can always request that it be tabled until the next meeting.
But if you're voted 3-2 against or 4-1 against, you lose that ability. For action, those are the items that come up to vote. Being able to table it is a simple majority. It takes that away from the individual that wants more information.
You still do the request to table without a vote, right? To my knowledge. Can't
On that.
vote on it. Okay.
Request to take, yeah.
Okay, all right, we're with it.
Now, we have had occasions whenever we've discussed a few items and we were ready to take a vote, and it was, all the commissioners were ready to take a vote. However, we had judicial authority that came down, advised us it wasn't on the agenda, and we couldn't take that vote. This is something that's rather rare, and I think that we could honor a request to table. I don't think we're being unreasonable in that area.
They have a good reason to explain why they want it tabled.
Could be an advantage in a lot of ways. I mean, there's no simple of it, but it could be both directions.
One person
Time
can
is of
ask
the
to
essence.
table it, and it's tabled. That's my question.
No, it's got to be voted on.
Majority.
Yeah.
It's got to be
Simple
voted
majority.
on.
So that doesn't give a commissioner a chance. A lot of times, I don't get enough information, I feel, at a quick meeting. Sometimes we don't get the agenda till 2 or 3 days before the meeting. Go back and look at several, I think, bad decisions we've made because the vote was forced through. One almost cost us $20,000. Fortunately, we got out from under it for $13,000 or $12,000. We would have had time to do some research maybe the board wouldn't have voted for it. I just don't see the logic in forcing a vote on something where there's not been enough time to research or discuss. That's just my opinion.
Well, I don't have a problem either way, really. I can see advantages both directions, disadvantages both directions.
We have that ability when we have the consent agenda. One commissioner can ask for anything to be brought out of the consent agenda. But we don't have that the way it is right now for additional discussion or to be tabled.
If you table it and get a party rule is tabled till the next meeting, I mean, that's a standard procedure process.
I mean, that's the way they want to do it, that's the way it'll be done. I'm just opposed to it.
I think if you got a good reason why it should be tabled, I think you'll get the support. But if it's something just a delay, I don't think we need to delay. We need to move on.
I don't think I've ever asked for anything just to delay. I've always asked for something for information. Now, we'll see how it goes. We can always address it at a later date.
True. Any further discussion? If not, do I hear a motion?
Move.
Yes.
Second.
Need a motion? Would think, yeah. Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I would just ask clarification on what the motion is.
To adopt a new agenda layout.
No consent agenda? Agenda?
Which is basically the way we used to do it until about a year ago. Motion second, call to question, Mr. Chairman.
Wait a minute, new layout, what?
Did he propose removing the consent agenda?
We had the
That's correct.
ability up until 2 meetings ago. It was listed on our agendas for months and months for action. And the clerk decided to take it out of that procedure and put everything under a voting with no discussion.
We got discussion on the voting when we get a motion and we got discussion right there. This gives you the ability to vote on any particular item we're talking about right here. We got a motion and a second.
Motion to change to the recommended layout. Now, what we can do as a safeguard is we can say if one commissioner objects, we've got to table.
Would agree to that.
If a commissioner requests additional information, then we automatically table.
And the minority is ruling.
Same way that they do with the consent agenda. One person can pull one thing out for discussion.
I'm not in favor of that. I think we work as a majority, and if the point's made to table something and it's convinced the majority, then the majority has rule.
And that doesn't give a commissioner, one commissioner or two commissioners a chance to ask for further information.
Well, in my opinion, we all have gotten the same information at the same time. So, I mean, if the majority has enough to make a decision, then the majority is the one that's counts. I mean, that's all you got to do is count
So
the three.
you are proposing a change to the policies that we adopted on December 2019, in that Agenda 5, Section 5, Rule 9, subparagraph C, the board may, by unanimous vote, add an item that is not on the agenda. Now you're proposing that we go to majority vote. So we're going to change the rules of procedure. Mr. Chairman, I think it'd be appropriate to call a 5-minute recess. I know we have some members here in the audience that may not want to listen to the debating of the minutia and would like to go home and have dinner.
Sir calls for a 5-minute recess.
Motion and second.
Yeah.
That bill.
Ring that bell.
Call the meeting back to order. We got a motion and a second on the floor and another motion. So we got a,
Mr. Chairman, I request clarification from judiciary. Where are we?
Well, you have a motion and a second, and then you have a new motion, and I'm not convinced you are clear about what you're voting on. So if I could kind of try to dissect what I've heard so far. The item on the agenda is talking about the agenda layout. And the way you've been having it in most recent months, you have a section devoted to items that are on the agenda just for information. And then you had another section of the agenda, items to be voted on. And this proposal is to take it out of that format and put it, as it appears tonight, just under general business. So that an item is on the agenda that you would know about when you get your agenda packet, so it has nothing to do with adding items the night of the meeting. That's not what we're talking about. This is about items that are already on the agenda. And if the board feels comfortable taking action the first time it's on an agenda, it would allow you to take action the first time it's on an agenda without having one board meeting to discuss it and then having that same item show up on a different agenda on a different meeting for a vote. And that is something that we've run into several times in the last few months, that there has been a presentation to the board has been ready to take an action, but you couldn't take an action because it wasn't in the section to be voted on. It was only in the section for discussion, and so you've had to delay those votes until the next meeting. Does that help?
this would give us the flexibility to take care of it at the present.
The way it's proposed,
We make this change.
if you make this change, it would allow you to hear a presenter about an item of business, allow you to discuss it during this meeting, and vote on it at the same meeting. It would also allow any one of you to make a motion to table. It would have to be seconded, and it would have to be passed by the majority to table, the same as it would take the majority to pass the item of business.
We're clear.
I'm clear.
Bobby?
The fog has been lifted.
So we're voting, what we're voting on is the ability to vote at any time on any item that's on the agenda.
Yes.
Not going back to the way that it used to be.
The way it used to be most recently, where it was separated into for discussion only, for action to be taken. So that it would not require each item to be on an agenda on two different meetings.
Actually, the night's, yeah.
So that's the way tonight's meeting was held, is held.
That's the motion, tonight's agenda layout.
We got to back up one here, don't we?
Yeah, you actually have two motions on the floor.
Motions, we got to back up.
I think you can have a second motion.
Second one was to modify it so that one board member could,
I rescind my second motion. And I have a second on my rescinding.
All right, we're good to go now with the first motion. We had a motion and a second to accept, like tonight's agenda was held. You can vote or not vote either way, right? We're good. No further discussion. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed? 4-1. Motion carries. Let's see. Next on the agenda is changing the meeting times. Commissioners' meetings to 6 p.m.
Make a motion, we move the meeting to 6 p.m.
I second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
The motion second. Any further discussion?
Want to stay up that late?
Well, yeah, missing the movies.
Some of them get long.
Get here from work in time.
Get
cow's
your
fed.
energy drink about 5 o'clock.
Why not? Because my boss won't let me off.
Oh, my goodness.
I know.
That's awful. That's bad.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, raise your right hand. 4.5, 3/4, 5. 5-0.
So, but not really.
Okay.
Okay.
Back to our public comment.
It's heaven.
Seeing none, we'll move on down to county manager's comment.
Chairman, I have a couple comments tonight. The first one is Sheriff wanted me to mention tonight that the second annual 5K Run for a Cause will be on September the 12th this year, and that they will have representatives at your next meeting to further discuss and talk about that event. The second item, I had to make notes. Now that the budget is where it's at now, there are other items that we need to focus on. One of those items includes finishing the projects that was included in the financing package the county took on a year or so ago. It is my understanding that in the past there was established a courthouse committee that was an integral part in talking with members from the judicial and other branches to help the county along. I've had several conversations in the last couple of weeks concerning the new Council on Aging facility and the status of it, the old Council on Aging and the status of it, and schedules and implementations. I would like to ask the board to identify one, if not two, members to, once again, be on this committee. In addition to that, I would like to request that those that member or members have the ability Wednesday afternoon to begin discussions as they so relate.
My question is, why get rid of the old committee?
I don't, members matter not to me. I just need people of representation.
I think Mark and I have been on that committee for several years. I personally would like to stay on it. I don't know if Mark wants to stay on it or not. I think when the committee slowed down, it was when our finances went in the basement. We had to finish certain other projects first. For the last 4 or 5 meetings, I've brought up the courthouse, as to where we were. I think it's sort of been news to you as to what's been going on.
I would agree with that.
I would
Any
gladly
changes, I would
let
like to
anyone
stay.
else do it if they want to. Anybody can. The schedule would allow them better than mine would.
Mark said he'd willing to give his up if somebody's schedule will work better.
Don't farm. The only thing I pick is flyers every now and then to deliver. I've got the time. If I've got the mental acumen, but I'll dedicate the time to it, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so John and Bobby?
To change the fee structure or the committee structure on our committee schedule. We're on the committees. There's 20-some committees, so you have to go back and change that a little.
We'll have to do that next meeting, right? I don't remember seeing it.
I don't
Honestly.
remember seeing it.
Anyway, we'll check into that and see. I don't believe it was on committee.
Could you let me know the time and location of that meeting, please?
Well, I'll be in contact with Judge Duncan tomorrow. I did advise him today that I would be in touch with him tomorrow to set up something for Wednesday afternoon.
This is just an appointment, we don't have to do no voting.
This Wednesday.
This Wednesday, yes, sir.
I've got my list of committees here in my rolling research. We have a court security meeting. That's what it's called. It's a court security meeting. Committee, Court Security Committee.
Different committee.
That's the
Different
committee
committee.
that's been meeting to discuss this since the first architecture had the,
No, that's a different committee. That's the committee that includes,
But it's not in the list.
the committee that we're talking about was the one that had Davy Boyer, Heather Klein, county manager, the two of you, Judge Duncan, Judge Byrd, and Judge Doughton was not part of that committee.
Me and Mark were appointed to go on it from the commissioner standpoint. Others were volunteered along with the sheriff, which was appointed to be on it, and attorney. Bobby volunteered to come on it at a later time, so I don't have to serve on it, but it was just a temporary committee. It wasn't deemed to be a permanent committee. It looked like it might have to be, but
Now, the Courthouse Security Committee is a committee that is comprised of the clerk of court, the sheriff, Judge Byrd. And I think that's the one that you were referring to. But
Okay.
that's different than the ad hoc committee that was formed. It may have had some of the same players, but they're two separate committees. The Courthouse Security Committee is an ongoing committee, and the Courthouse Recommendation Committee was just an ad hoc committee that was supposed to be making recommendations about what to do to address the problem.
was when the,
You may be on both, I'm not saying that, but
that was when the $4.5 million
yes,
projected
yes,
renovations came up.
yes. They're two separate committees.
That's the only one I'm showing in my list of committees. The courthouse.
Okay, so we're settled on that?
Chairman, I have one other comment.
Okay.
And it follows along the same lines, but as we progress through, there is a growing demand to get the new Council on Aging facility completed, the old one renovated, to allow the courts to move into that. There are some existing concerns within the courthouse today that also will need some attention. And I would like to for us to be thinking on how we want to address those. One of the items that I think that we should be thinking about is getting some sampling and monitoring done of the existing structure. And if the board is okay with it, I would like to at least reach out to a few individuals and identify some of those concerns and get their thoughts on it as well. We are, and I say this, we're at the clock right now.
I think that it's your job to head up this research and find out what needs to be done. That's what we hired you for. You already proved your weight in gold in the budget, and now you've gotten us here.
I appreciate those comments. I just, this is a tight window also. I don't want that to slip by. This is a very tight window in which we need to get moving and get finished.
Mr. Chairman, I believe we need to show support and allow the county manager to conduct this inquiry to the best of his ability and support him. So I'm behind you 100%. And I agree, we don't need to wait.
It needs moving on.
Need to vote on this, or is
Need a
it?
motion to give you the go-ahead?
I believe just let everybody saying we're behind you, get it done, and I think that would be sufficient, Mr. Chairman.
Let him do his job and let him tell us how we can handle it.
Yep, that's it.
And I'm sure before he spends money, he's going to come to us and let us know how much we're going to get hit.
Since he doesn't have it.
'Cause you don't have any.
Anything else? Any commissioner comments? Got any volunteers? Who's first? Bobby?
Comments?
Comments?
Well, I guess two comments. DOT's been stretched to the limits. Their money and being able to take care of secondary roads. And I don't know that there's anything that the commissioners can do to help with Raleigh with the legislation. I know they're getting, I don't know if they'll even have a budget signed this year. We're still waiting on last year. But I do know that DOT is basically out of gravel, and it's hard to even get them to scrape a secondary road. The other thing, just a question, I guess, for Donna on the fire tax. Once this fire tax is implemented, all those records become public records as to receipts, as to how money is spent and how money comes back in, how money's raised. Is that something the general public can ask to see, or how are those funds treated?
What I've been asked to do is draft contracts for each of the volunteer fire departments, asking for specific information each year about what their income is and what their expenses are. So whatever they turn over to this board pursuant to that contract is public record. And can you show up at the fire station on any given day of the week and say, give me your records, I want to look at them? Probably not. Not quite in that format. But the information that you're requesting pursuant to that contract, once it is turned over, is most certainly public record.
So there's no way for the general public to look at a fire department's expenses or revenue?
Once that information is turned over to this board, that information is public record.
That information has to be turned over to the board for it to become a public record.
Fire departments are not public agencies. They are nonprofit corporations. They are not sub-agencies of the county. They do receive county funding, and that's why these contracts are so important, to request the information in those that you want to have them provide. But beyond that, they're not county agencies.
Just with all that's going on in the country, I love where I live. Times like this, it just makes me appreciate it so much more. Pray for our country and all that's involved in what's going on out there to try to get some stability back in place. Two, again, I know I mentioned it, but I say this is probably the earliest we've adopted a budget in years. So, very good job involved in all the work.
I'd just like to thank the Budget Committee also. I was part of that, and Commissioner Prince was with us, and County Manager Michael and Drew, Assistant County Manager, Karen Evans, Finance Officer, and Jennifer Boyer. I'd just like to give you all a big thank you for all the time and hires that you accumulated along the way. And all the department heads. We had a tremendous amount of support and help from the department heads along the road too, and that was a challenge. And the other thing is the census. I've been reading where we're still behind on getting our census turned in by a whole lot. So just kind of jogging everybody's memory to maybe pick them up and fill them out and send them in. That's all I had. Commissioner Prince.
Same thing on the budget and the Budget Committee and all the people involved in it. I think the board did a good job of approving it. I don't think there's going to be any surprises in it. I feel very comfortable with it. Everything was looked at, all rocks were turned over. I think it's a good budget. I think the process to get this year's budget under control was very good as well. And thanks to Mike for bringing some of that to our attention. The other thing is I think the citizens of Alleghany have done a great job staying safe. Our records are still very low compared to all the peer groups beside us. So, the citizens for that.
Mr. John.
Yes, I'd like to cover a number of things. During the public meeting over the fire tax on May the 19th, several things came up. We were accused of suppressing the vote. We are authorized under General Statute 153A-302, subparagraph A, in the North Carolina statutes. They allow the county commissioners to establish fire districts and the fire tax under that general statute. We were also accused of making cuts to the rescue squad budget. But you've got to realize with the rescue squad, we recognize not have them to fall back on, we would be putting on a third ambulance. That would be very expensive, especially whenever you start looking at the personnel involved. The biggest expense this county has is personnel. So we recognize the importance of the rescue squad and the great job that they do. However, whenever you look at the budget for the rescue squad, you've got to look at two locations. Their budget, in the budget this year, they are just about even with what they got last year, if not a little bit more. The Fire Commission has it in their budget, the Fire Commission budget, to pay for the workman's comp, the insurance, things of this nature, and also the matching grants. So whenever you add that money to the money that's in the budget for the rescue squad, they're basically about equal. Now, hopefully, if we can get out from under the budget crisis that we are right now, we can increase that a little bit more. But right now, things are tight. COVID-19, we still haven't felt the full impact of that. With the implementation of the fire tax, which happened tonight, I'd like to thank the chair for his support. Also, Larry Prince. As we've gone through this process and I've brought it up, their support has been fantastic. I appreciate it, and I don't believe it could have been done without your backing, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Prince. In regards to the contract with the fire departments, I'm sorry I had a senior moment. I'm old, I admit it, and I do have senior moments. The items that were placed, given to council for the contract modifications or the new contracts, the volunteer fire departments must present to the board a plan which will result in the reduction of the fire rate for their district. Reports will be twice yearly, in January and August, if I remember correctly. They must tell us the progress that they have made. In addition, we will have a line item journal showing where all the expenses and revenue are from. Now, I'm going to break off on that a little bit. For those of you that want to know what is going on with a 501c3, 501c3 must file yearly a Form 990. If they do not file a Form 990 with the IRS, they lose their tax-exempt status. Form 990, which is basically an income tax return for a nonprofit, is available on the internet. Ordinarily, it takes about 2 years before they will become public because the IRS has got to certify that it is that they have accepted it. If it's under investigation, they're going to investigate, and it will not come out, of course. The 501c3, it will give all their debt. It will show their depreciation, all their assets. It has everything. Usually, it will run around 18 pages long. If you go onto the internet and put in in the search engine Form 990, it will take you. You can put in the zip code, and it will show every 501c3 in Alleghany County. If you go to the hospital, Alleghany Hospital, the old one, it will show you the salary and the benefits of the top 3 executives for that organization, if they pay. It tells you everything. It is there. Minutia is there. You file a false report, deal with the IRS. I don't want to deal with the IRS. In the contract also, we have provisions, and my request to the council was, put it in there ironclad, that not a penny can be spent other than for the operation and maintenance of fire departments and apparatus. Whenever she brings it to us, we will see how good a job she did. But those were the 4 things that the chairman and I discussed. We agreed that we felt that that should be brought in there so that whenever it comes to the county commissioners, if we aren't satisfied with it, then we can go back and we can modify the contract until we are satisfied, and then we can present it to the volunteer fire departments. And not saying that we are showing a bully pulpit or holding a stick over their head, but if they don't sign it, they don't get any money from the fire tax. Take it any way you want to. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Godspeed. God love this great nation.
Thank you, Commissioner Irvin. Have a request for a closed session. According to General Statute 143-318.11.A/6 personnel. Also, General Statute 143/318.11.A-3 legal.
Motion to go in closed session, sir.
A motion, here a second. Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.